Thanks everybody for joining this show. As y'all know, it's been it's been a minute since I've done a show, and I wanted to do something very impactful, a little more serious in the line of, in the vein of where I started the show. So just for everyone's knowledge and awareness, this is going to be a show talking about domestic violence. It's going to flow how it's going to flow. Just to give y'all a heads up, this is the topic we're going to go over, and I have the distinct honor to have one of my longtime friends since my Calvert High days with me, to really open up about her story and what she's gone through and her road to creating her new you. The one, the only, the beautiful, the talented, the longest running Korean I know. Miss Alison, hello. How you
Hi.
feeling?
Good.
How many miles did you run today? I'm gonna say this week. How many miles did you go today?
Today I haven't run any.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. It's Saturday. So what'd you do this week?
I did about 35 this week so far.
It's a light week for you. Very
Yeah.
lightweight for you.
Yeah. Sure.
So some of y'all know, some of y'all don't know. I was kind of a track legend back in the day, and Alison and I used to run together. Of course, she was doing too many laps for me. I wanted to hurdle, I wanted to sprint. I wanted to get back on the bus as soon as possible, hitting on the stands, but that didn't stop me and Alison becoming great friends. And then when I moved back home, she and I were able to reconnect, and it's just been a great ride just to spark back up our friendship and be able to hang out. But in the course of that, you definitely opened up about some of the things that you went through in the time that we were apart. So I was wondering if you wouldn't mind just kind of starting off with, I guess what happened, just how all of this, like, it's how'd you get here?
So it definitely was like a complete 180. So him and I dated on and off for 5 years, and he it didn't become violent until probably the last year and a half. So prior to that, everything was good to go. We were getting along. We dated. We moved in together. We did break up, and then we got back together. And then we broke up again, and then we just um, stayed friends, but we still hung out. We had a lot of mutual friends, and we played soccer together. And then he was also on my men's team, so it was a lot of intertwining of our relationships, not just with each other, but with mutual friends and family and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know the root of what transpired. I think a lot of it was that we had broken up, and so he had heard that I had started going on dates and hanging out with other people, and he took that a certain type of way, which is very hypocritical of him because he was doing the exact
He
same
was
thing.
cheating. Was he cheating, or was he just going out
So
and hanging out with girls?
yeah, when we were together, he did cheat, and then when we broke up, I'm like, "All right, I'm single, I'm gonna do me, I'm gonna, go out, try different things, see what's up." And when he heard about it, he just did a complete switch, and he was back, and he was like, "Oh, lovey-dovey," to get me back, and then he used me talking to other people as the fire starter for it. And he was like, "Well, you did this and you did that and you did this," and every little thing would always come back to that.
Right.
And it was just like, "Well, you had said you wanted to move forward. We're moving forward. We're not talking about the past, clean slate." But every single fight would go back to that. And it was like, I don't understand, because you were doing your thing, you were chasing your tail,
Mm-hmm.
when we were in a committed relationship and we were not. But yet, so it's okay for him to do it and
Right.
for you to, but when I do it when I am not in a committed relationship, it's all hell breaks loose. It's the
Right.
worst thing that could ever happen. And so it just got to the point where he just kept bringing it back, getting angrier and angrier. And then one day he just snapped. And it was like, what the poop? Y-
So, y'all don't know Allison, but are your parents gonna watch this? They probably will. She's
I'm pretty sure.
sailor adjacent. Let's just say in her speech.
But yeah, it definitely was different. I mean, it's pretty much the same path that most victims, I feel like, go through. They first apologize, you believe them, you give them a second shot, it happens again, they apologize, and then it becomes a routine. And it's not just physical abuse, it's mental abuse. So that just
Mm,
pure manipulation,
mm,
you know, just get used to that routine. It becomes structure for you. Just you you're being told you're never going to be loved, no one's going to love you like I do, blah blah blah,
fuck.
like people are not going to deal with your shit, things like that. And you just get conditioned to believe that and trust that person that that's true, and it's not, but you get it stuck in your brain and you just stay. And then when you finally do realize, like, oh shit, I could die any day, it's, how do I leave? I can't leave. If I leave, where am I supposed to go? He knows my family is, he knows my friends. What if he comes and finds me? What if he goes to my family?
Mm,
So then you start staying out of fear.
mm,
And then you finally just realize your worth,
right.
and you realize that you deserve the best life ever, because you only
Mm,
get one shot at it.
yeah.
And you get their courage, and you walk away.
Right.
And whether you decide once you walk away to press charges or just don't, that's on, the survivor. It really just depends.
Right.
Um, but to have the courage to get up and walk away from the situation and put yourself in a healthier spot is the bravest thing anyone could ever do.
I feel you, man. I think there's a lot of disconnect with um a lot of people who have not gone through anything like this.
Mm.
Because they can't, like, if
Yeah.
you haven't gone through it, you can't really understand it. Um
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot of like blaming the victim type shit, which is something I know I've been guilty of it when I was a lot younger, but understanding the fear and the level of just, I don't know, narcissism or sociopathic behavior that somebody can get to, or the amount of control that they want to actually push on somebody. It's like, oh yeah, I'd be terrified to leave my damn self. Like, if you had somebody who's showing up to your job, popping up at your friends' houses, showing up to places that you didn't tell them where you were, and somehow they just know that you're there. It's just
Yeah. It's
like how else would you move? You'd have to move a little bit cautious.
because this person was the person that loved you unconditionally,
Mm-hmm.
and that was supposed to respect you
Mm-hmm.
and keep you safe
Right.
and love you and be there for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember the first time he did it, I didn't think about myself. I thought about him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he did this as a mistake because there's something wrong with him.
Mm-hmm.
He needs help.
Right.
And everyone's going to see, and no one's going to say, oh, yes, you need help, let's get you help. Everyone's going to say you're a monster
Yeah.
without looking at the root of the problem.
Mm.
And so I stayed because I loved him that much that I wanted to help him get better.
Mm.
And then you stay for love, you stay for fear, and then you eventually leave.
Yeah.
A lot of it is Stockholm syndrome. You don't think that there's a way out. And I think a lot of people, do blame the victim because it's easy to say, "Oh, you could have just left." It's very easy to say
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people have empathy for survivors who have gone through domestic violence, and they are supportive of that person, which I think is fantastic.
Mm.
But there's always that, in the back of your head, you could have just left, and it's very hard when it comes to domestic violence. It's very hard for someone who hasn't actually experienced it to really understand what it's like to go through it. Not
Mm-hmm.
just the physical aspect of it, but
Right.
the mental aspect.
Right.
They just it's just a constant exhaustion
Yeah.
of the mind.
Yeah.
And on top of that, think about, so someone tells you something and it hurts your feelings, you hold on to that, right? You could hold on that for life.
Mm.
And that's just like a one-time thing, right?
Right.
Imagine that every single day on a consistent basis.
Right.
How many years of trauma you went through, just triple that. And that's maybe not even close to how many years it's going to take you to get past that trauma,
Yeah.
process it, and forward. And I think supporters just need to understand that it goes far beyond just the physical bruises and scars. Because you can seem like the happiest person ever, but deep down and on the inside, you're just like,
Right.
you just feel empty. You don't know anything. So I think sometimes just giving survivors the opportunity to just express themselves however they want goes a long way
Mm-hmm.
and heal.
Mm-hmm. I feel like to the point of like, oh, you could just leave. And we've talked like kind of briefly just about the 1, 2 situations where I've been in a relationship with a woman and she's put her hands on me.
Mhm,
And though as you're sitting there talking, I'm thinking like, oh, we didn't even live together. We lived in apartments next to each other. Yeah, it's gonna be awkward doing laundry for the next couple of weeks, but like that's gonna be the end of it. But like y'all were living together, you've been together
mm,
for years. Um, there's a lot of other components that we won't get into um, that play like big parts in that. Obviously family being one of them. Uh,
mm.
and yeah, trying to talk to your family about it, like what's going on in your romantic relationship, and it's just like, oh, it's hell right now. But they promise it'd be better later, and like you kind of do hope that it would be, but
Yeah.
you know, um, I think the biggest thing is always just for folks moving forward, like when people show you who they are, regardless of what they've gone through, what you've gone through, whatever the case may be, believe them and keep it pushing. And I think about just like if I was married right now and I'm in this house that I'm in, and my partner was starting to be violent towards me, it's like I would be like, shit, oh, Al did it. I'm gonna have to fucking figure it out for my damn self and get the fuck up out of here because, it's because it's terrifying. The betrayal alone is just like I think
Mhm.
that's the biggest thing that a lot of people that they don't think about naturally, immediately, just like this motherfucker say they love me and they just put their fucking hands on me. This is insane. Like they
Yeah.
just violated me in a way, and I'm just like left here thinking about like what the fuck.
It's like it literally is complete shock. Like the first time ever, I was like, "What the fuck just happened?" Like, and then you start like your mind just starts going every which way. It's like pew 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 pew. You know, you're like you feel shame, you feel sadness, you're angry, you're like, "What? Let's go." You know, you just
Hmm.
it's it's very hard to explain. It's just like having every single emotion that you can possibly have
Mm.
at and then that's how it is. And it was like that, in the beginning, and then it got to the point where it should be. So I was just like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm used to it, which is not good, obviously,
Right.
but you just get conditioned.
Right.
um I went to a domestic violence event, and this woman was speaking about how he was with her now ex-husband. He was with him for 24 years, and 20 out of those 24 years, he was violent towards her and emotionally and mentally abusive as well.
Fuck.
And so, every situation is different. So my situation obviously is going to be different than every other victim.
Hmm.
Um, but that's a prime example of why or how people can stay so long. She was married to him. They had children,
Hmm. Hmm.
young, and then she was worried about the family, her friends, things like that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of factors that go into it on why a survivor stays
Yeah.
with that person.
Yeah.
It varies. It could be love, it could be scared, it could be because self-esteem issues,
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. And I don't think that a lot of people are aware that that's what it is, because it's like one of the biggest decisions you could ever make in your life.
Yeah.
And when you make big decisions like that, you do weigh the options and you make your little pro and cons list, and then you decide, yes, I'm going to do it. And then you back off and then you go back and forth. It's just like making a life altering decision in life,
Yeah.
for someone who hasn't had to choose in regards to a domestic violence situation.
Yeah.
And I think, once that people are more aware of that, I think the understanding of why people stay and why they feel like they can't leave will be a lot better.
Yeah. I think that's yeah. I mean, I think that's where the general population doesn't understand. And I think if they have more education and knowledge, that
Mhm.
they'd be a lot more receptive and have better tools just to one, identify if somebody's in a domestic abuse situation, and two, like knowing at least some of the tools that might help them get out of the situation, uh, put them, at least get them um, some safe space, period. Even if it's just like, hey, um, giving them room to just have some space where it's like, even if it's going to take some time for them to get out of there, they could at least be like, hey, when you're at work, we got to go to this meeting. There's no phones allowed. So if you are in one of those situations where you have that person that's just constantly blowing up your phone, maybe that's the time period where you can just have a minute to just kind of breathe, collect your thoughts, figure out
Mhm.
like what can I do to get out of here? What can I
Yeah.
do? What outlets do I have? What hotlines can I call? Are there any systems in place to get me
Yeah.
somewhere?
So there are programs. There is a domestic violence hotline. I think a lot of the reason why survivors don't come forward is because a lot of it, unfortunately, does come down to he said, she said.
Mhm.
A lot of times when if you do decide to go the route of pressing charges, a lot of times there's not enough evidence to continue to press charges.
Mhm.
I was very fortunate on my end that I did have pictures because I got them from a friend that I had sent them to, but he would go through my phone and delete all the pictures
Right.
that I would take of myself after the beatings, or, any text messages that he felt like put him in a bad light or he admitted to doing something, he would delete it. He
Mhm.
was very, very, very cautious about that.
Right. Right.
He obviously didn't want to get that out. Um, but it's one of those things where it's very hard to with people in general because with domestic violence, a lot of it is don't ask, don't tell
Mhm.
as well.
Right.
So don't want to get involved in it, which is understandable because court proceedings can take years.
Yeah.
So people don't want to get involved with it, or it's their family member, or they just don't want that in their life at that moment. And I respect people for that because I don't know if I haven't gone through this, what I would do. You know what
Mhm.
I mean?
Mhm.
So um it's definitely, I think getting the resources out there will definitely help a lot more.
Well, 100%. 100%. Um, so in a timeline of y'all relationship, at what
Mhm.
point where you were like, all right, done?
I want to say so. The first time we broke up, I want to say, oh, we're done. He cheated. We're done. Blah blah blah. We took a couple months off. Where we didn't talk, and then we saw each other occasionally because of soccer. Then we started talking, and then he said he changed. The whole spiel. You get back in that honeymoon phase where
Mhm.
everything is hunky dory, lovey
Mhm.
dovey. We started dating again, and then we broke up.
Mhm.
So and it was the same reason why before. So, I should have known. But again, when you're in love and, you love someone that much, you stick it out. You do that ride or die kind of thing.
Mm. Mm. Oh man. Relationships are hard, man. Their relationships are hard in general. Like, but then you start adding like infidelity, and then the domestic violence aspect into it, and like the control and the manipulation into it, and it's just like that feeling that you feel when you're around that one person, and X, Y, and Z. But when you were like, all right, you've been putting your hands on me for too fucking long, bro. Like this is a wrap. Like what did that look like?
So I remember like it was about like I knew like it got to the point where like I knew the signs and like the little quirks in the body language
Mm-hmm.
with when he was going to get physical. Like I got it on the dot.
Mm.
So I knew that something was gonna happen that night, and, um, I was like, "Alright, I'm gonna go to the bathroom," and I was just sitting there, and I was like, "Holy shit. The last time that we had an altercation, I almost died, like, I literally could die tonight. I could not wake up anymore." Like, I knew that every day being with him was a risk, yes, but
Mm.
it didn't really hit until I really sat there and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing right now?"
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he was like, "Alright, we're going to the car," and I knew when he was like, "Yeah, we're going to the car," I was like, "Oh, shit," you know?
That's gonna be your
So
last ride.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Shit.
And so
Shit.
walking the car, and I was walking faster than him, and I unlocked my side because my car at the time, if you just click the unlock button once, it would just do the driver's
Mm-hmm.
side. If you hit it twice, then it did the passengers.
Mm-hmm.
So I just hit it the one time, got in, shut the door, made sure the doors were locked, and I just drove off.
Yeah.
and like that was it. I went to my that morning, and then never went back except for to get my things that were still there.
Yeah. So
So,
so when did also you're very fucking brave and very fucking smart for doing those driving off into the night like that, man. Oh god, man. Like you told me this
I,
before, it just never gets easier hearing it because my friend, I love you, man. I'm just so fucking terrible that somebody treated you this way.
mm-hmm. Because I remember I was just sitting. I remember I drove off and I was like, "Arr!" I felt, at the time I was like, women empowerment, and then I was like, fuck, what am I gonna do? Like a lot
Yeah.
of what am I gonna do with my stuff? Like my work computer, I was just started like just freaking out, and then I just literally drove to empty parking lot and sat there
Mhm.
with no music, nothing, and just sat there in complete silence. And then I was like, oh my god, I like was like, all right, let me do a plan. Then I figured out, I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. So then I went home. I talked to my parents, and I stayed with them. And then, we started the process of proceeding with criminal charges
Mm.
against them.
Okay.
So, and at first, I remember when I told my parents why I was back. So I remember I called my mom that morning and I told her, I was like, look, I'm coming home. I'll be there in an hour. I don't want to talk about it, but I'm coming home. And she was like, all right, see you in an hour. And then, because before I went home, I was able to get like my work stuff. So then I went to my parents and I worked the whole day. And then my parents were like, all right, so we need to sit down. We had to talk about, why I was there. Because I feel like leading up to it, my parents did feel a certain type of way, like they knew something was off,
Mhm.
but they didn't know what it was. And so I didn't tell them everything. I just told them, like, hey, he was abusive, I can't be there anymore. And my parents were like, oh my gosh. And so that night we went to the police station and we pressed charges for that night that I had left because he strangled me that night. And threw me around and stuff. And so we went to the police station, we pressed charges for that and all the threats and stuff like that through text messages and stuff like that. So they pressed charges for that.
Right, 'cause
And then
even though he sorry to cut you off, so even though he like deleted some of those text messages, they still exist in the servers for all the
yeah,
telecommunication companies.
yeah. So what's it called? So once the police was done writing their reports and stuff like that, they went to go get the warrants for his arrest, and then I went to a doctor's office where they did a fact report, and the fact report is with a licensed practitioner and
Mm.
doctor, and they just go over you with a fine tooth comb, take pictures. Um, a lot of the pictures are infrared, so bruises that you
On your
can't see
bones, yeah,
underneath, you can
tissue
tell.
bruises, yeah, all that, yeah.
Yeah. So it definitely, I remember growing up, I watched SVU and I'm like, oh my God, that's so intense. And yes, it is 100% that because you really do feel like a lab rat.
Yeah,
'Cause they're picking and they're pulling at you and they're taking all these pictures of every nook and cranny. Like they're asking you all these questions, what can you remember? Things like that.
hmm,
And then once you're done there, then they're like, all right, have a great night. And then they rate up they do all the reporting and they rate up the report and then, they give it to the prosecutor.
right,
So then after that night, um so we went that night and then we didn't get back until that morning. I want to say like four, like probably like 5 o'clock in the morning. And then I worked that whole day. And then I think later that week, um, I started working through the legal process
Mm-hmm.
where I met with my prosecutor, my victim services um, representative, and then which I'm very, 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 very grateful for the detectives, the victim service reps, and the prosecutors
Mm-hmm.
that I worked with. Uh, I'm very fortunate. Uh, so we started that process, and in Northern Virginia, it's a very large area.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you can literally cross your you'd be in a different jurisdiction,
Yeah.
and that's what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did I have to do charges in one jurisdiction, I had to do additional charges in another jurisdiction. So both jurisdictions got together and we had an interview. I had an interview with the detectives.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm.
and I had him with me, and I remember he was in the interview room with me. Let me tell you, I'm sure, like deep down, broke him to hear everything because I had to do everything in detail, explain everything. And he just sat there, like calm, cool, collective. And I remember on the way home, he told me I was the strongest person he's ever met. And I don't think people realize that it doesn't just affect the survivor, it affects everyone around them, especially their family. Because while I went through a lot, my family went through
Yeah.
a lot as well. But could you imagine having to sit there and hear your daughter or your son, your sister, your brother, your mother, your dad, your grandma, whomever, hear them just tell you horrible things about brutal beatings they got on a consistent basis? You had pictures shown, you had, you know, you heard the voice messages, saw the text messages, it's you know, I never I always knew my parents went through a lot because of it, but I didn't know the extent of it until like I actually spoke to my parents about it.
Mm-hmm.
And because then they start feeling the fear, because what if he did go to them, you know what I mean? Or,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And so, it's affected a lot of people in my life. My friends feel it. They're like, "Oh my gosh, how do we not know? We could have stopped it." Same thing with my parents. So they feel the guilt, they feel the shame. They feel for the survivor that they know who went through it. So it's not just the survivor who's affected by it. And I'm sure his family's been affected by it too.
Right.
You know, he's in jail.
Right.
So that he can't see his family.
Right.
At the end of the day, he did it to himself,
Right.
but I'm sure it is hard on his family not to see him. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's
And know he
I'm
did all these things to you.
Yeah, I'm sure it's hard for them to hear those things,
Mm.
or actually remember it and see it, and I think that it goes above and beyond just the survivor. I definitely think the survivor is the main priority because they're the ones going through it mentally, physically, and emotionally on a completely different level.
Mm-hmm.
But I also do believe that the people who are also affected by it through the survivor should be able to get help as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I mean, that's huge of you to have that type of objectivity to be like, obviously I've been victimized, but also even though I'm the primary victim in this, there's tertiary levels of victimization that are happening, and the fact that you even thinking about addressing that is that's big of you, man. Because I mean, I know if I would have known that you were experiencing all this after all these years, and if I was around, yeah, I wouldn't have probably, yeah. We're not gonna play hypotheticals, but I'm glad you're here now. I'm glad that this whole process. It took a while for you to like go through the courts too, like that,
Yeah,
especially because you went during COVID. Like this started, and then
yeah.
COVID happened.
I I finished everything up past July,
Mm,
and I want to say it began 2 years. So 2 years ago in July, I started the process,
mm,
and my apology, it ended in June of this past year
mm,
of this. So it started 2022 and got finished in 2024
yeah,
through the whole legal process.
yeah,
And it's one of those things where that's one of the reasons why a lot of survivors don't continue through the process
mm,
because it is extremely long. It's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of having to hear your story being told through someone else
mm,
because I never got to tell my story.
mm,
I never got to go and have a sit down like we're having right now.
yeah,
He ended up taking a plea deal, so I didn't actually get to go to trial.
mm,
Um, which I'm glad in the sense that what they had done was severed the charges. So
mm.
each incident would have its own trial.
Mm.
So end
Oh
up being,
God,
yeah, 70 trials.
right.
Uh, but we did settle, uh, and I believe, which is the most important, that I got the justice that I
Mm-hmm.
deserved.
Damn right.
Um, but going through the process, I remember there were days where I just was done.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my gosh, I've had to go back, and this whole week I've had to go back and forth at least 3 times, and then I have my I have a full time job too.
Right.
It's fortunate with my job that I was able to take those days off,
Right.
and the time off to go to all of the hearings and the meetings and things like that. Um, but it was a lot, and I completely understand why victims and survivors stop during the process.
Yeah.
I understand because it it's just a lot. And also too, cases varied as well. So some cases might have really good strong evidence and then some might not. So the some that might not have as great evidence, and your prosecutor will straight up tell you, like, hey, this is what we're going up against, they're going to bring up ping 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 ping, they're going to say xyz, you know so there it really just depends, I guess, but it's just I understand why people stop through. I remember back in the day before I didn't go through this process. I remember I was watching some TV show or whatever, and their survivor had stopped going through. They're like, "I'm done. I don't want to do it." In my head, I'm just like, Psh, "What? Nah, you got to do it." But that's because I didn't know.
Right.
And a lot of times, like if your prosecutor or someone says, oh, we really don't have any strong evidence, it's more of a he said she said, there is a chance that we could lose. Just being upfront with you, from the beginning, that
Mm.
could deter them from going forward.
Yeah.
But I remember I would always tell myself, at least I can say I did it.
Yeah.
I rather go to court and lose than not go to court at all.
Right. Especially if
Because
you. No, sorry.
no, no, no.
No, especially because like if it's you went to court and the only reason why you lost the case quotation fingers, it's because you didn't have enough evidence. Doesn't mean that none of that happened. It's
Yeah,
just you just didn't have enough evidence.
yeah. and that's the shame. And a lot of times too, there's these things called guidelines, right?
Mm.
So if you commit X, your guidelines that you're going to serve is between A and B.
Yeah, it's like a flow chart. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
so sometimes on that chart, a lot of things are taken into consideration. Are you first time offender? Are you repeat offender? Things like that.
Mm,
So unfortunately, sometimes too, depending on the charges, it could be a lesser sentencing, if even sentencing.
mm.
And there might be a time where survivors like, well, I don't think that's good enough. And I could see that. If they're just getting a slap on the wrist and a fine, it was just like, wait, seriously?
Right.
But at the end of the day, you still came forward, you told your story, you pressed charges. At the end of the day, you should feel accomplished in itself. Like to go through that process. And while you might have not gotten what you wanted, it still was an impact on you.
Yeah.
Is whether he took a lower plea or the sentencing was less, he was found guilty
Right.
of something.
Right.
you know and even if I lost in court, that's fine, but you're still like, how you can do the court case search,
Yep.
and they stay on there for years sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you might be convicted not guilty, you type in your name, it will still pop up with those charges.
Right.
So it's still going to tie to your name.
Right. And for
So
employers, yeah, that could be a thing. They'd be like, "Nah, bro, you put
mhm,
your hands on women, like, or somebody. Let's say they go off and decide to date somebody, a year later, and they're like, let me court search this joker real quick. See, like, no, no, thanks.
mm,
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it could just be like a warning to the next person that might get involved with this person, especially if they haven't done anything to like to truly atone for their sins. They don't
mhm.
deserve to be running around here like the average civilian. They don't deserve to be out here living real cozy out here. They need pressure on them socially by all means, by all angles. Yeah.
Because unfortunately, there's probably so many survivors out there that haven't come forward.
Oh yeah.
Whether it happened today, 10 years ago, whatever. I feel like there's a lot of survivors out there that unfortunately haven't come forward. And if that's the way they healed and that's the way they processed it, then that's how they decided to do it.
Right.
I just hope that survivors know that there is help available and there are people out there who do want to help.
100%. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like even something not even so severe as abuse. Like folks are kind of reluctant to reach out and ask for help, even on some little shit. Um,
Hmm.
Even if they need help moving. It's like, hey man, can you help me get my couch in? They don't want help for that. They damn sure ain't about to reach out to a friend if they're in like an abusive situation, and that's rough. But for something that serious, if any of my friends listen, if you're going through some shit like that, please call me. Please call me. You have a couch. Definitely have some beds to crash on. Like,
Well, sometimes too, like I feel like you just a lot of times the survivor doesn't want to bring people into it, right?
yeah,
They're like, I don't want to bring other people into it. I don't, or they don't want them to know. They feel guilty about it. They feel that shame. They're gonna look at me in a different light. Because there are people, unfortunately, that do have that mindset,
yeah,
right? That, oh, they stuck around, so what else do you expect? Well, I mean, they probably shouldn't have done, things like that.
yeah.
The people who play that devil's advocate
Right.
because they think that is most likely the reason why. Um, but it, I don't know.
No, no, I feel you, man. I feel you. Like like I said, I've been there. I get it. I evolved. I learned. I understood it. I was full of shit and I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. And people who end up in a situation like yours, there's no like right answer sometimes. Sometimes it's just like, I'm gonna have to suffer through this for a little bit until I get the courage to leave, and you
Mhm.
can't do shit about it, and it fucking sucks
Yeah.
to watch somebody you love go through it. But you know, from where I'm sitting, it's just like, always have your, doors always open. You always got a place
Yeah.
to stay.
And I think survivors probably do know that. I knew at the end of the day, like
Yeah,
I could always go
yeah,
to my parents.
yeah,
I think it was more for me, it was like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna tell it? How are they
yeah.
gonna react
The
to it?
shame and
What
the guilt. Yeah,
do things like that. And a lot of times too, some people just are very, very quiet, or they just don't want to tell people.
yeah, yeah.
They're like, nope, I'm gonna keep it to myself, I'll won't handle it. I know um I posted on social media a video. I know you saw it.
Mm,
And, in the comment sections, people from high school that I knew said that, I haven't told my story about it, but I'm sorry you went through that. Yeah. So that, certain things in the comments, like you're a strong woman, things like that, like comment. And that's the thing I don't think sometimes survivors understand is that you get that kind of reaction. You know what I mean? It's not
mm,
always that negative reaction. Oh,
mm.
well, stayed. Well, what did you do? You
All
don't
right,
get that. Get the support of, oh my gosh, I'm sorry you went through that. You're such a strong person. You're a better person now. Things like that. That affirmation that you're like, yes, I have my life back. And people do care.
all right,
Because you start thinking that only your abuser is the one who cares about you because they manipulate you into thinking that.
all right.
And it's just feel like there's just a lot of people just see more than negative wise, or they want to
Mm,
concentrate on as like there's always going to be a negative reaction. It's not going to be for some. I mean, you're probably going to get a negative reaction here and there, but I feel like a lot of it you're going to get that like the comments I got, that uplifting, we're proud of
yep,
you, you're
yep,
strong comments versus the oh no, go away, like
right,
you could have left kind of thing.
yeah. Do you feel like there was a point where he was just trying to isolate you?
Yeah,
I feel like that's like the biggest thing. I had a relative. That's like the biggest like um red flag for me. Like if I have a female friend and they start dating somebody, or if I have a male friend and they start whoever, if I have a friend and they start dating somebody, and I don't mean like isolate, like hey, we want to do stuff that is just us, like going on dates or
yeah,
X, Y, and Z. It's the separate you from your friend group, separate you from your family, like oh, it's not me and my partner doing the things that we like to do with each other's friend groups. It's I'm just becoming this person's. I'm gonna make this person
yeah.
uh, uh, give up their whole identity and just be with me to the point where like their whole worldview is me.
So I think what like how it started with me was like we would hang out and then we would hang out all the time,
Mm,
consistent. So like you wouldn't see me without him at all.
mm,
We would all be together. And so I didn't have because we were always together, I didn't have that opportunity to go out and do other things with other people.
mm,
And so I got content into thinking that that was fine. You know
right.
what I mean? So I did lose friends, you know what I mean, in
Mm,
that process because I just pretty much ghosted them. I didn't really talk to any of them,
yeah.
you know. And I completely understand where they were coming from because it's like, well, why am I going to keep reaching out when she clearly doesn't seem to care,
Right.
right? So, at the, so then those people stop reaching out to you.
Hmm.
So then you truly become isolated, right? Because you're not reaching out to them, they're not reaching out to you. All you're doing is hanging out with that person, with your abuser, and They just manipulate. They start doing the mind fucking of saying like, "Oh, I'm the only one that's gonna love you. I know you the best. No one knows you like I do." And then you're like, "Yeah, you do. That's why we're." And then because of that, you think that they're the only person that understands you.
Hmm.
You start being with them 24
Right.
7.
Super codependent. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll pull off things for your family, or you'll go to your families by yourself, and then as soon as it's over, you're raced right back. You get to that point where you just think that your life is their life.
Hmm.
Your life is that person.
Yeah. I think
So
that's. Yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
that Mhm.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, so when you're trying to leave that, if you think about it, like, all you know is that, right? All you know is that person. So that's why you start thinking, it's like, all right, well, I really don't have any friends left. I really just have this person. Where am I gonna go? Like, I don't talk to anyone anymore.
Right.
It all comes to that.
Right.
It always
Right. So, like, if you could, that's like, I had a family member. He's passed away now, but he was a how can I say this? He was a pimp. He was a pimp, and that was like one of the first things I would always um understand about that world was like that's the first thing. They will isolate a woman, build her all the way up, um, give her everything that she's ever wanted, and then just take it all, blame it on a incident that happened, and then that woman would then keep trying to chase that dragon to get back in his good graces in order to like get the relationship that enticed her in the beginning with. And like that's always such a psychological manipulation tactic that it's just people do it all the time. Women do it the
yeah,
same as men, women do it to women, but like it just looks that it looks different, but it's usually the same practices. It's just um uh uh it presents differently.
yeah,
That's my biggest red flag, man. It's like this motherfucker don't want to hang out with me. They want me to only hang out with them all the time, and they're upset when I have friends.
right.
Let me get out of
No, and
here.
about to
uh,
be their only friend.
right? Oh, like that.
Your only
Oh, my
friend.
only friend. I know we're about to make a joke. We know each other too. Um, yeah. What would you say to anybody who's in the thick of it right now? Like, what type of advice would you give to them?
Just know that you can leave.
Mm,
You can get out.
mm,
And when you get out, you're going to feel like a ton of bricks just got lifted off of your shoulders. There's a lot of resources out there. There's a domestic violence hotline. And I know locally there's probably shelters, or there might be organizations that help women specifically.
mm.
Um, but just know that there is a way out, and that there is a better life out there. And you deserve so much more than what that piece of crap is doing to you and making you feel. Because at the end of the day, your life is not worth being in a relationship with them at all. I know, um, I think a lot of help will be also therapy when you do leave.
Hmm.
I'm in it. I see a trauma specialist. I have a really big issue with compartmentalizing. So I'll think about it. I'm like, don't want to deal with that. And I'll put it in a little box and then just pack it away. And so I feel like part of that got me through the legal process.
Yeah.
Bad, obviously, because when you start compartmentalizing, you forget about it, right? But when
Mm,
it finally creeps up, it just hits you.
yeah.
So that's what I'm working with my therapist on.
Yeah.
Um, so I definitely think therapy is a good, help once you do get the courage and the bravery to move forward is to see a therapist to help you get through it, or someone you truly trust in, and you confide in, someone like that, who can give you a third party opinion on it. Because having to talk to someone about it feels so good, because not only are you admitting that it happened to you, you're also processing it as well, because you're saying it and you're explaining it.
Yeah.
And I think, because I know therapy can get quite expensive, but if there is a way you can find some sort of outlet, if you can't do therapy, maybe art or running or climbing, do something, a hobby, pick something up, it'll be very beneficial. um so but just that, there are people out there that care, that want the best for you, that this is just a minor roadblock in your life, and it's not going to make or break you, and you're going to get past it, and you're going to have a better life going forward. And it's going to suck, and it's going to be very hard, and there are going to be days where you want to break down and cry and just give up. But if you persevere through all that, you're going to come out healthier and happier. But you have to get to that point where you're like, I deserve better. I know my worth. I'm going to leave. And I feel like that's the hardest to get to and to get past.
And thanks, Al, for doing this here. I know we talked about doing this just a while ago, but I'm glad that you still wanted to have this conversation and tell your story and just lay it all out, man. I appreciate you. I hope this reaches somebody who's going through it or knows somebody that's going through it. I hope they pass it on and it puts a little gas in their tank to get them through a day, through the week, through the month, or the year, whatever case may be, and to eventually get out of their situation. So I appreciate you, man. And
of course.
Yeah.
A new friend, and she told him, she knew about my story, and it helped her get closure for her story.
Yeah.
And so to be able to provide closure and to be an advocate for domestic violence and to help other survivors will be the biggest accomplishment I could ever do in my life. Because for one survivor, justice for all survivors, just to know that you can't get it. So it's definitely, I hope it does reach someone, I hope that they feel inspired, or maybe it gives them a little bit more courage to take those little baby steps to leaving. So yeah, but I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you letting me on your podcast today.
Yeah, man. Anytime you want to come back, who knows where you'll be, what you'll be doing, a couple months, a year from now, like, when your book's out or whatever the case may be, or whoever you're going to be helping out. If I can help in any way, shape, or form, I want to be a part of it because I believe in everything you're doing and I believe in you. So, yeah, I'm with it.
Thank
you. Yeah, man. Well, we'll wrap this up here. Thanks everybody for listening, and until next time, night show.
Bye.